Welcome, everybody. Tuesday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show kicks off right now. I am a dad, so you now got two dads talking to you here on the show. Clay, an old grizzled veteran of fatherhood. Me, new,
Gray bearded
gray-bearded.
dad.
I'm a rookie to this fatherhood thing, but I have to tell you, I absolutely love it, and I appreciate so much all of the just the kind words and well wishes and everything from the moms and dads out there and everybody. Who were so kind as I was out for a few days. Carrie, my wife, a total trooper, never lost her temper, never was anything other than upbeat during it was pretty long time in the hospital. But I was gonna say we got through it. She got through it. I was there for moral support. And the only thing I learned is probably next time wait until my wife is out of the hospital before I'm like, when can we have more? So I was like, can we do two or three of these? This is awesome. So yes, the baby thing is incredible, and if I seem a little even more upbeat and ebullient about the future than ever, it's because, well, you all, those of you who have had kids, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and the grandparents out there, you know that it just kind of puts you in a frame of mind and a mood. So everything is great. Carrie's doing fantastically. The baby is adorable, healthy. Everything is great. Thank you so much, Clay. Thank you for rocking out. I was listening when I was out because as one does when you're just sitting around in the hospital. Talk radio is like your salvation when you are stuck in a hospital room for hours and hours on end. So I was listening to the podcast and stuff. Great shows, and I say we just jump right into it. And if you guys want to talk more fatherhood ideas or the first few weeks or anything, we can just throw that into the mix as we go. But yes, I'm in kind of a like walking on cloud nine attitude, as I'm sure you all understand. It was fantastic. But we got a country to save, and we got a lot of things going on as well. So let's just lay out there that we'll discuss this situation, Clay, of this individual who has been sent. The case of Gilmar Abrego Garcia, who has been sent to El Salvador, and now it's in the courts, and the libs are saying Trump has to bring him back, and Trump's like that's foreign policy related. A judge can't actually review it. So we'll discuss this. I think it's very interesting. Um, I also threw out an idea on Twitter, which I don't think is crazy. Maybe this is crazy, but I don't think this is crazy. Trump International El Salvador. I think it would send such a signal. This country is incredibly safe. He's talked about it in Gaza, for heaven's sakes, which is not incredibly safe. I think that this would send such a signal that great allies of the United States, people that make the right decisions, and I think it's a lovely place. The problem with El Salvador used to be that it was the murder capital of the world per capita, or in the top three. Now it's the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. So I think time to start putting in some foreign investment. I think the Trump International, or whatever they want to call it, Trump San Salvador, would be pretty cool. So if anyone has a line into Eric Trump of the Trump Organization, I just think it's an interesting idea. But Clay, I wanted to start with this one. The Trump, let's just say what it is, the Trump war on woke campuses. And Harvard University has found out the Trump administration is going to freeze $2 billion that had been committed to this. It is tax day today, which we'll talk more about. So, as Clay pointed out to me before the show, I think this is a particularly worthwhile time for us to say, hold on a second. So the government backs the student loans with with no risk to these institutions whatsoever. And so that lets them jack up the tuition endlessly. When my dad went to Harvard Business School, Clay, and he was a dock boy, that's what they called them, and waiting tables over the summer to make money to pay. And you could. Harvard Business
Yes.
School was like $2,000 for the year, for the semester. This is obviously like 1970, but now these schools are 80 grand, 75, 80 grand a year. It's outrageous. And on top of that, they're getting billions of dollars of research money, and they're left-wing lunacy factories. I like that Harvard and a bunch of other schools are getting some heat from the Trump team, and that this is a real initiative. They're not just coming up with this ad hoc. They want to make universities abide by the spirit of not only the Constitution, but the American ethos.
This is where Hillsdale College gets it right. And I'm not saying that just because they're a sponsor. I love a lot of what they put out into the educational ecosystem on a variety of different levels. But think about this. It is tax day. And I'm sure many of you are like me, stroking checks that you don't want to stroke to send to a government that you feel is likely to be wasting the money that you are giving them. and that you could spend that money or save that money or utilize that money that you earned better than the government could. I am with you. Our tax rates are far too high. Okay. With that being said, colleges. Right now, colleges get, and team, you can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I think this is pretty much true everywhere. They get tens of billions of dollars in direct cash payments from the American taxpayer. That should end, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But we're giving them property tax subsidies in almost every city and state, and we are giving them tax exemption, meaning that their endowments can grow without having to be taxed in the same way that yours and mine's earnings are taxed. If you give them property tax exemptions and you give them not for profit status so they don't have to pay taxes, the taxpayers are already subsidizing colleges and universities to a massive degree. To build on what Buck said, then we also subsidize student loans and try to take the risk from the university itself and place it on the American taxpayer, our government. Why in the world are we also giving them tens of billions of dollars in taxpayer subsidies? I don't think any college or university should get any of our taxpayer dollars. I think a subsidy on property taxes and on not for profit status should give them plenty, plus their endowments. Let them actually deal with their own cost structure.
Right. I mean, there are limits on these things, right? If you think about religious institutions, they are tax exempt, but you tend to people understand why proselytizing, for example, if the government was funding that, there'd be an issue, right? Well, why are universities getting all this money that they can then use to pay salaries, administrative costs, all this other? They say it's for research, as if they're all running DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Project Agency out of the Pentagon. Like they're all figuring out how to give sight to the blind or really important, amazing stuff. I guarantee if you think there's fraud, waste, and abuse in the federal government, just wait until you see what the administrative staffs of universities have turned into. This has been true across education, by the way. My friend Inez Felcher has done great work on this, Clay. Something like administrative headcount, and this is true from nursery and public schools and the very beginning of education all the way up through universities and PhD programs. Administrative staff has grown at breakneck pace in the last 20 or so years, like 6 times what actual teaching staff has. So, whatever you think about how fast teaching staff is growing and the administrative staff, and this is where you get DEI, this is where meaning people that's their job. We had diversity deans at my college. That was an actual job title, and there were a lot of them. And their job was to just march around and make sure that you never said a naughty thing or took a non-approved position in public on the town square or in the college green, or you'd be in trouble. You'd have to go to re-education camp, and which did happen to people, I might add. That was one of the punishments. You'd have to go and do like sensitivity training, essentially, Clay. And the other part of this that I love is so yes, the tax. A lot of you are saying, why are my tax dollars going to subsidize? Harvard has what's the endowment? $60 billion, something like that.
I
80
was
billion.
talking about that yesterday, and I meant to look up I'm going to look it up right now because, again,
It's outrageous.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
this is an amazing amount of money that they have piled together.
53 billion as of last year.
That's astonishing. Astonishing. And so you sit here and you say, well, hold on a second. As you're getting ready to, or hopefully you've already got it in, but if you're getting it in the last minute, pay your taxes and you're trying to make ends meet. Harvard, with its tens of billions of dollars sitting in the bank and all these bloated salaries for professors who maybe teach a class once a week and take sabbaticals of a year where they get paid and the waste and everything in this is met. The other part of this, Clay, is the university system. We have to be on the same way that federal bureaucracy has become a province of the left and essentially a form of permanent left-wing governance that is not about elections, right? The federal bureaucracy, the EPA until Trump came along was Democrats getting what they want, whether it was a Republican or a Democrat administration. The university system, it's the same thing. No matter who wins, who loses, doesn't change the faculty at Harvard, doesn't change the board of overseers, and they are factories of the left-wing insanity that has infected so much of this country in recent years. They're not teaching people important stuff. They're teaching people left-wing nonsense. And so I think it's time that they're held to account.
I just think at a bare minimum, if you want to have complete independence, you should do what Hillsdale College did. Harvard has $53 billion in their endowment. They have, again, it's not like they have to pay a massive amount of tax on that endowment every year. They return around to 8, 9, 10% probably a year on average. So they're growing that at a $5 billion a year clip. I don't think that a government should be in the business of dictating to colleges exactly what they can do. But if you take our taxpayer dollars, then the government does have a say in what you do. I mean, that's been established for a long time. Go back and read Bob Jones, put in my constitutional law hat. When the government gives you money, they have a right to be involved in the way that you run your college and university. And I think the biggest solution here as we sit on tax day is why are we giving billions of dollars in subsidies, tens of billions of dollars in direct cash subsidies from our tax dollars to these universities? They should be able to make their business, which is the university, work without needing any money from the federal government at all. And if they can't, they got to cut back like most businesses would that don't have tens of billions of dollars in federal dollars coming in.
And I know what they're going to do now. They're going to say the research grants, and they're going to try to promote. The New York Times is going to come forward because remember, this is like the cathedral of the left. This is so important to them to have dominance, not just of of education in a broad sense, Clay, but of elite educational institutions. They have seized so-called elite. They have seized these places and leveraged them for their own maximum benefit. They turn into indoctrination factories for kids to come out with, yeah, I know not everybody. I went to Amherst, you went to law school at Vanderbilt. You can go to these places and not come out a communist, but I'm sure Vanderbilt's probably, well, I don't know. How left wing is Vanderbilt? I have no, less so
I
than
don't think
Amherst.
I think Vanderbilt is actually committed. A credit to the new chancellor at Vanderbilt. They kicked all the protesters out. They have the
Yeah.
University of Chicago free speech code. It's been solidly committed. They just re-signed the chancellor for 10 years. I'm really very confident in the direction Vanderbilt's going, but I hope that other schools follow that lead. And I don't think it's coincidental that Vanderbilt's able to go that direction while being based in a state like
Well,
Tennessee.
that's what I was going to say. I think,
Because I think the SEC schools in general, Buck,
yeah,
are a little bit different than your Northeastern Ivy League schools.
as the weather gets better, the schools get less insane. Not always true, but I know there's Duke and there's some exceptions to this. But as things get warmer, I think you tend to have less. The most radical stuff is in the Northeast. It's where I went. It's in the areas where I went to school. That's where you have the craziest stuff. Maybe the Pacific Northwest too. But there's nothing that really can compare to how crazy those places are. How Brown University, Wesleyan University, these institutions. But Clay, I would just say I think this is important. Stephen Miller is reportedly very much involved with this working group that's going after, and I think it's necessary to put these universities on notice. They've been engaged in racism. According to
Yes.
the Supreme Court, they've been engaged in racism for a long time. These are racist institutions that are getting, these are constitutional violators. They are violating the right that all of us have to be judged not by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character or by our SAT scores. They are in violation, and still to this day, they're trying to just pull all these games. So part of, we can get into some of what the Trump administration wants from them. They want an end to all DEI programs. This is to continue to get federal funding. They want access to admission records because they know that all these schools are just, they're ignoring the Supreme Court. They're just going to keep doing what they
Yes.
did, which is making sure that they have, the percentage of black students they want, the percentage of Native American students they want, and so on and so forth. They're going to do that even though that's a violation of what the Supreme Court has said. So I think this is great, and it also is going to change people's thinking because one of the things, Clay, I'll be honest about this. Whenever I would have, I don't know what your experience was with this. Whenever, earlier on, particularly in my media career, like young conservatives would reach out to me, they would say, I have a professor who is a communist. Like, I'm going to write a paper that really tells him. And I said, no. I said, no, because I want you to get the best possible. I'm not saying don't lie, like, don't write things that you'd be embarrassed by, but don't think you're going to die on this hill and be a hero by getting an F as a student at some school your parents are paying God knows how much money to send, or that you're taking out loans to go to. Get the best job you can, be as successful as you can, help change the country when you get out of that place because you're not going to change it really effectively from the inside. I think the mystique of a lot of these places is fading. And that's part of the power the left has counted on. Like, oh, I went to Harvard. Even let me you look at some of the people who went to Harvard, they're morons.
I know this. Your wife went to the University of Florida. It's almost impossible to
Possible.
get into the
We were
University of
just talking to
Florida.
one of our neighbors whose boy wants to go there, and they're talking Ivy League equivalent SAT scores or ACT, I guess if you're in the South. Ivy League equivalent scores to get into University of Florida now. Everybody wants to go.
University of Tennessee. Buck, when I was a kid, 17, 18 years old, you basically had to have a pulse to get into the University of Tennessee. They have tens of thousands of applicants now. It's become increasingly difficult to get in there. University of Georgia, it's almost impossible. UF. I mean, what's happening is people are voting with their actual dollars. And I'll tell you this, when I was a kid, nobody from Chicago, LA, or New York City would brag about sending their kid to an SEC school. Now they all do. It's a major cultural shift.
I'm sitting here and I'm doing well. My wife obviously is the one who did all the hard work to give our son life in this world or bring him into this world. And I got to say, my energy has been pretty good, and I only missed a couple of days. I'm excited to be back, but part of it is that for about 6 months now, I've been on a health journey, and chalk. I've got my chalk daily right here in my hand. Chalk has been an important part of that. Yeah, we had some lost sleep last week, but you know what? I'm able to bounce back faster. I have more energy. One of the things I was really lacking before, I just got to a point where I didn't have the energy to get through the day the way that I wanted to. And I didn't want to just rely on, I love coffee, but just rely on coffee. You've got to have the right stuff. And that's what chalk is boost free and total testosterone. That's what Chalk Daily says. I take it every day. I've got it here in my hand. I would take it in the middle of this segment, but that's going to slow things down. It's fantastic. Go to chalk.com. Check out what they've got. The Male Vitality Stack has an ingredient proven to increase testosterone levels by as much as 20% in 3 months. For the guys, that's critical. Ladies, they've got great hormone supplements, hormone balancing supplements for you too. Chalk's Female Vitality Stack will help with that tremendously. Go to chalk, CHOQ.com. Use my name, Buck, for a massive discount on any subscription for life.